when you think of the University of Texas law school greats, there would be Dean Keaton, Stanley Johansson, Charles Allen Wright, these professors that have become the best in their fields and have brought honor and prestige to the University of Texas. Ernest Smith is one of those.
Teaching, scholarship, and service. They're kind of the three pillars of what it is to be a college professor. He excels at all three. Any school would be lucky to have Ernest Smith.
I cannot think of any person that better epitomizes what it is to be a gentleman and a scholar.
He has influenced hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers who've come through.
He's always been one of the most popular professors at Texas.
He is a mentor. In a sense, he is bigger than UT.
Everyone just respects him, but also just so genuinely likes him. You just want to be around him.
Thank God for Ernest is what I say. Because with most people, what you see isn't what you get.
You can't say this about many lawyers. I mean, he's really that guy that you see.
A man of great principle, deep intellect, unassailable integrity.
Just one of the very best professors and scholars that Texas has produced.
The field of oil and gas law, it simply would not exist in the same way without him. He's not only at the top of his field, he owns the field.
Nobody's like that. Just Ernest Smith's like that.
Dad grew up in a small town in South Texas, a little town of Gonzales. At that time, just several thousand people, the son of a rancher and prominent businessman in the community. Everybody knew everybody. Dad was born with this great sense of curiosity, and his parents encouraged him. And they fostered that any chance they got, whether it was his chemistry set, his deep interest in books. He read just voraciously. Dad is very, very proud of the public education that he got in those public schools in Gonzales and the incredible quality of teachers that he had at a young age that really had a deep influence on him. One of those times in class where, the teacher asks you the inevitable question, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, Dad, at the ripe old age of 8 or 9, announced to everybody that he wanted to go to Harvard Law School. But the beautiful thing of that town is nobody told him no. They said, follow your dreams. And he never lost sight of it.
His mother would have been proud of him, or the teachers, because he was always prepared for class. He did all the things he should do. He was just a nice guy.
And he was happy. He
was happy.
He had a good nature.
Good nature.
This was the high school, Gonzales High School. Ernest Smith, valedictorian, was top-ranking student by only a few points. I was second. I was salutatorian. No, we don't need a recount. I'm sure he was the top. Here's Ernest in his senior year, and he was voted most likely to succeed. And he did.
He did.
Growing up in Gonzales, I think, shaped your values and gave you a foundation to build upon. And I think
A good education.
Good education.
Good education.
I do think there is something about small-town America and rural America that gives people like Ernest and myself a strong work ethic. And we work hard to get where we are. That's undoubtedly influenced Ernest.
I think we both had a desire to do something maybe a little larger than where you came from. And my God, all the things Ernest did are certainly beyond the norm for Gonzales, I guess.
My granddaddy had a couple of oil and gas leases on the ranch and used that lease money to help pay for Dad's education and ultimately law school. And so growing up with land and his background and a recognition of how important that was to Texas, Dad started on that path early. And 50 years later, here we are, and, widely recognized as one of the deans of oil and gas law, not only in the state, but in the country.
It was in 1954. We both were entering freshmen there at SMU. And we had a common interest in doing debate work. We'd both debated when we were in high school. I remember I was always proud to have him as a partner,
and I knew that we would have a thorough understanding of the issues and the best arguments we could make.
We took a lot of classes together, and the wild parties, I'm not going to talk about those. All of us who had had classes with him knew that he was always the brightest one, the smartest one, the best paper, the best answer, and the best manners, always.
1959, we both arrived at Harvard Law School, and Ernest kind of stood out in my mind at that time. Ernest was on the law review, and the people that were selected were the very top academic achievers in the class.
Got out of law school, went and clerked for a year at the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans, where he was exposed to judges who encouraged him to follow his interest in teaching. And so at a young age, he found himself offered a job at the University of Texas Law School, where, to be fair, there were a lot of students who were older than he was.
None of our other professors were that young. He was only a year older than us, basically. What set him apart was that he was so smart and so fair and so judicious. He just had a great temperament.
And he dedicated himself to teaching. He knew this was where he should be, and he pushed it to the highest level.
Being in Ernest Smith's class was the pivotal moment in law school for me, where I realized this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. You realize that he is dragging you through the most confusing, impenetrable, nuanced principles of law, and he's never just pushing his own academic agenda at all.
He might say, Ms. or Mr., weren't you really trying to say the following? and the class will all chuckle, and they'll know exactly that Ernest is trying to bring out the questions in a very delicate way.
Ernest would, with a few quick sentences, say, well, Jacqueline, I think it would probably be this way, because. And he would just be able to do that off the top of his head, this huge, vast background in property law that then can come through in oil and gas. He just seems to be able to understand things like that.
I'm sure over that 50-year period, he had many offers that he could have gone off working for an oil and gas company in-house or practicing law with a big firm. But he chose to stay at UT. Rarely do you find an individual that stays in one profession at one location for their entire career. And I think that speaks volumes about his love for UT and his dedication to the field.
Ernest becoming a leader in the field, garnering the respect of the bar, the academy, and the law school. It was not a surprise that in 1974, the law school turned to Ernest to step in after Paige Keaton.
All of a sudden, pops up, Ernest is dean of the law school. Dean at UT Law School, he's my age. I think he was 34, 35 years old, something like that. They needed a star to follow Paige Keaton. And after much cajoling, he said, I'll do it, but I'll only do it for 5 years. But I think they were monumental. They got that faculty together, and he said, okay, put on your seatbelts. We're putting 2 women on the faculty.
He broke a barrier that had existed for generations, and in doing so, raised a lot of eyebrows. It was because they were the most talented and the most qualified, and because it was what he thought was best for the law school.
I was one of the early women. There were only 7, 10 women in my class out of 500. So, of course, now we have probably half of the classes are women. We owe him a great deal. We realize how much it did for us and our careers. Wouldn't be a United States Senator today if I hadn't had the University of Texas Law School experience.
Ultimately, I think he's even prouder that he got back to doing just what he really loves, which is teaching generations of law school students. He loves the engagement. He loves to see his students go on to do great things, as so many of them have.
I think if it weren't for Paula, he probably would be one of these people who would just burn the midnight oil, learning how to be even a better teacher than what he already is.
Paula's wonderful, very accomplished at what she does. And hand in hand with Ernest, they've both been so successful.
She's the wonderful counterbalance to my father, and they were always traveling. There's always some adventure. Both of them are great lifelong learners. They have both really come to love nature and the outdoors.
He's a mountain climber. He's a hiker. Travels a lot. He's gone on a safari in Africa twice. He's the kind of person who I think would want to learn more about things than most of the rest of us would really care to learn.
He doesn't wait to see what life hands him. He just jumps in. If he's going to do something, he is all in.
He has a lot of work still to do because we've just turned the corner on what could be a 20, 30, 40-year renaissance in domestic oil and gas production. And this complete renaissance requires a brand new generation of oil and gas lawyers and practitioners.
This is a field that he has captured and knows better than anyone. And he's written the book on it. He's the expert, and you can't be the expert if you are only in an ivory tower. You have to know what's going on in the real business.
He is not aligned with any one set of interests. He's not a landowner or an oil company or a pipeline person. And based on the development of the law in Texas, other states and other countries have looked to Texas and have followed this model.
He is able to give you a balanced perspective and to bring parties together and to cause them to realize that each other's side has some merit. That's the beauty of Ernest. He can do it all.
He taught immigration law. He's taught environmental law. He has been interested in water law.
Now, all of a sudden, he's becoming a leading expert in wind law after 50 years of teaching. It's amazing. I don't look at this 50 years mark as anything other than an anniversary.
I hope he doesn't slow down ever. I think he's a great asset.
The future for Ernest is whatever he wants it to be, and I hope it's a long and healthy life in the classroom.
He promised to come to our next class
Yeah, he's
reunion.
coming to the next reunion.
I hope we're still here.
Yeah.
I have this yearning to live up to his expectations, and I feel that probably for the rest of my career, I will be trying to live up to that. I would not be surprised if he was teaching until his last day on earth.
That's got to be the greatest dividend for a great teacher like Ernest. A half century from now and beyond, people will be recalling him and the influence as a teacher and as a person.
The old line about, you think education is expensive? Try ignorance, applies each and every day in the classrooms across this great country. And we need the best and the brightest to go into the fields of teaching. You can look in every corner of this state and you will find somebody that was touched by Ernest Smith at the University of Texas Law School. He treated everybody from every walk of life exactly the same way, with great respect, with great appreciation. And there's 12,000 law students today that have been better off because of it.